we really want at Bridge the Gap to shine a spotlight on people that are doing things just like you're doing and leading the charge, not only in helping raise money to find a cure, but to also just bring awareness.
Welcome to Season 7 of Bridge the Gap, a podcast dedicated to informing, educating, and influencing the future of housing and services for seniors. Powered by sponsors AccuShield, Align, Nick Map Vision, ProCare HR, Sage, Hamilton Captel, ServiceMaster, The Bridge Group Construction, and Solinity, and produced by Solinity Marketing.
Welcome to Bridge the Gap podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and we have a special episode for you today. Please help me welcome Greg Mason, CEO of SilverAssist, to our show. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I can't wait for our audience to get to hear about your story. And ironically, I recently was able to get to know you over the past several months and following your amazing mission and effort of a team that you have put together over the years. And this year to benefit the cause of Alzheimer's. And I can't tell you how much fun that was to actually be watching and following the journey on social media. I'm usually out on the bike with teams doing this, and I got to experience what so many fans and followers and people that join the effort and giving donations to help fight the cause get to see when they're following the journey online. And that was a totally different perspective for me. And it was so cool to be able to see the finish and be there to celebrate with you. So I want our audience to learn a little bit about you and your background and some of that mission, as well as SilverAssist later in the episode. But first things first, tell us a little bit about this effort. And honestly, you've been doing this for a lot of years on these cycling journeys. How did this all begin?
The group that we call Strambecco is a group of riders, basically. We weren't riders at the time, but we were, for the most part, we were all living in Marin County, California, and raising our kids and that sort of thing. And all of us had some interest in cycling, and a couple of guys were, real enthusiasts, and they sort of drew us into this group. And lo and behold, we were riding for a few years, and we talked about taking a big trip. And our first big trip was Italy, like 18 years ago or something like that. And so every year we've done a trip thereafter. But it's just a great group of guys. The best thing I can say about all of them is that, and I feel very fortunate about this, is that in all those years of riding together, I can't ever remember having to cross word with any one of them. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Well, that is all really impressive. And for our listeners that understand cycling, maybe are cyclists, they get it. But I'm sure there's a ton of listeners and people that are viewing this that don't understand exactly what level of cycling you're doing. And so this year specifically, you decided to do this not only just to have a great time with this great group of friends, but to do it for an amazing cause in the fight against Alzheimer's. And so you did this over multiple days with a group with some support that was with you, a lot of miles. So what was it like? And kind of tell us a little bit more details about this year's event specifically that you just completed.
Yeah, well, this year's event was a 442-mile route, and it went from Natchez, Mississippi to Nashville, just south of Nashville, on the Natchez Trace Parkway, which nationally is a bit of a bucket list kind of event for avid cyclists. It's really bucolic riding. It's not super hilly. It's mostly flat with some risers here and there. So honestly, sounds like a lot of miles, but it's not like riding in the Swiss Alps from the Rockies or something like that, where, you're doing a lot of climbing and all the exertion that's associated with that. But it's just a wonderful experience to ride that much and to ride that long, every day. And although to a lot of folks, maybe that sounds extreme, it's not that extreme, especially, we've been doing this a long time. And so we're, I guess, conditioned to, to ride longer distances. And you do acclimate, your body acclimates over time. And honestly, I didn't have that much time to prepare for the event. And I'm no special athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but I have the benefit of the fact that, I've been riding my bike pretty consistently for a long time. And, I've had a lot of body adaptation, I guess, to being able to do that.
And you're right. There is so much advantage you had going into this because of your experience on the bike. But I can personally say I haven't been riding as long as you have, but I can remember my first big event I was training for, and it was shocking the first few months on the bike that even 20 miles, just getting used to that. So I know a lot of listeners that maybe go out and ride on greenways or things like that, when they hear over 400 miles in 5 days, while it may not much for you, I think a lot of our listeners are saying, whoa, that is a lot of miles. So interested to know kind of were there any unique challenges? I know you had a very experienced group of guys that you've ridden a lot with along the way. Was there any unique experiences or challenges you experienced along the way on this event?
Well, I think the one thing we all had trepidation about, there were 2 days that were back-to-back days that were 100 plus miles. And so there was certainly some trepidation. I can't say that as much as I've ridden, I've never ridden more than 100 miles 2 days in a row. So that turned out to be so bad. The other thing, to keep in mind too, is that, we weren't exact because it was flat, and we're riding as a group. The intensity wasn't terribly high the whole time. And this is where the connection to Alzheimer, one of the connections to Alzheimer comes in, is that the health benefits of cardiovascular exercise, and not necessarily cardiovascular exercise that is, you're all out all the time. It's more that low boil, that what they call Z2, in cycling parlance, which is that level of exertion where you can actually maintain a nice conversation and everything with someone. And so it's not as hard as a lot of people think in that regard. And that kind of exercise methodology is, in fact, a really key tool if you're interested in prevention from a long-term perspective as well. And so that's one of the areas that I thought there was a nice fit, with the Pedal for Alzheimer's organization, just the whole preventative side of the equation.
Along those lines, Greg, I believe you have some real personal stories and reasons why, even from your family perspective and you, of why this is so important to you. Can you tell me more about that?
I had a grandfather and uncle on my father's side who both succumbed to Alzheimer's, and so I have some direct personal experience. I went and had the gene test as well to verify or that I also have the gene variant, that gives me the higher probability of contracting Alzheimer's down the road. So in that regard, personal, I saw how difficult it was for my family. And this is going back, 10, 20 years. And obviously the research and the treatment protocol for Alzheimer's have come a long way since then. But, 20 years ago, for those who, didn't experience this, it was in some ways a mystery disease. You know what I mean? It was so new. Again, we've come a long way since then, but that's been part of it.
It's amazing how far research and just awareness about Alzheimer's, and now I think there's not many people that I come in contact with on any given day that haven't directly been impacted, or for sure indirectly impacted in their family or by close friends or loved ones by this terrible disease. And that's why, we really want at Bridge the Gap to shine a spotlight on people that are doing things just like you're doing and leading the charge, not only in helping raise money to find a cure, but to also just bring awareness, because that's part of the reason why I think we have made such advances is because people are getting more information and education about it, and so your efforts are so appreciated. Now, this team that you've assembled, intrigued. I want to hear the story, and I'm probably not going to pronounce this right. Strambecco, is that correct? I think it's Italian. Is that right?
Yeah, it's an Italian, it's a name that we decided way back when to name ourselves. And I've gotten a lot of personal benefit and camaraderie out of being with these guys and then seeing the world from the back of a bike, with these guys. And so in that regard, it's been enormously rewarding to me. I've been so enthused by it that I actually started a website, called Strambecco.com, and it's a site that's meant to aid discovery for folks like me and others who might be looking for great events to participate in that you can kind of call experiences. And one of the things I've realized is every time I do one of these events, it's a unique experience that stays with you for a long time. And so we dedicated a site to helping people find those kinds of experiences, basically. So it's a little bit of a labor of love. It's a small business. I've turned it into a bit of a business as a side hustle, a side hobby on weekends and nights and those kinds of things. But it also allows me just to stay close to, my passion, which is cycling and, endurance sports and that kind of thing.
What a noble and worthy cause, to use your passion, your physical abilities, your influence that you earned through the years and all your successes to go towards something that is benefiting so many people. And so I know our audience is going to want to follow that and check that out. We're going to link all that in the show notes as well. But you're no stranger to passion and building brands and missions and creating teams around that. It was fun to see this group of guys finish after a long week. As a matter of fact, I think y'all had even ridden through a little bit of rain when I saw you, but to see those smiling faces as they stormed down that hill towards the finish line with the Natchez Trace Bridge in the background, it was truly special. And I had the opportunity to hear them talk about their experience kind of one-on-one and it's the awesome things they said about you and the mission and things like that. So it's heartwarming. I know our listeners will want to check that out. But I also want to, as we start kind of wrapping this up, I want many of our listeners probably recognize you who are watching and I'm sure recognize your name and your company at SilverAssist. You're no stranger to helping people. You guys have an awesome mission over there at SilverAssist in helping veterans. And for our audience that may not be familiar with you all, can you tell us a little bit about the why behind SilverAssist and kind of the journey that you've been on in creating this awesome mission and company to help so many people in the latter part of their lives?
We sit right at the intersection of that time in a senior and really a family's life where mom or dad reach a point where it's no longer feasible for them to live alone or to live at home any longer. They really need to be in some form of an assisted environment whereby which they can have daily care offered, depending on, their particular needs, but they're unable really to live independently any longer. And unfortunately, we're all going to get there, at some point, but really that's what the families, that's what the company's focus is really all about. And we built a mission and a purpose-driven company to super serve the family at that inflection point in their lives when they know that mom or dad sort of needs to make that transition. Mom or dad's ready. They've also acknowledged it. And we come in and we provide advisory services that answers all the questions, related to this phase of life. This phase of life is inherently emotional. It's a crisis in and of itself. American society, global society for that matter, is really not literate in the issues and the questions associated with this phase of life for seniors. And often it's the eldest daughter or the children obviously get pulled into this as well. They're not prepared for it. So our entire mission and purpose is focused on helping the family in that at that particular moment, that inflection point. And we try to identify solutions and options that help mom or dad make the optimal transition, find the right home for their particular needs. We also have we happen to have a financial service arm as well, because families don't often understand how expensive senior living is. They might have some experience to the extent they've had home care resources, but oftentimes families, haven't prepared properly for paying, for the costs associated with senior living. And we have a whole business arm that is specifically focused on helping families understand their options. And we have several solutions that might bridge the family's desire to move mom as soon as possible with their need to sell a house and everything that would go along with that. So we have a variety of other things. You mentioned veterans. Veterans is one part of our service offering. We own the domain ageattendance.com, and we offer a very efficient software application tool that streamlines what is otherwise an onerous process for veterans to apply for senior living benefits. And so it's a serverless app for VA benefits, said another way. But it's one component of our financial service offering. SilverAssist was actually formed 3 years ago, but it bridges like what we call assisted living placement advisory services with financial services. And we do this in such a way that we offer true localized expertise. We also own, one of the largest franchise networks focused on senior living in the marketplace called Oasis Senior Advisors. And so we actually have local advisors all over the country. And the reason that is so important is that senior living is really local, right? Mom or dad, they don't want to move across the country in most cases. They want to move close by, right? But they also don't know what they don't know with respect to specific communities' ability to meet their needs from a care standpoint. And we have experts that are extremely familiar with all the various options done on a local basis. And so that's a lot. I know that we got a lot going on, but we formed just 3 years ago, and we're growing really quickly as a company, and so it's very exciting.
Well, it is exciting, Greg, and what a great service and mission that you have personally and that your company has. I can attest to the great challenges that families face in finding care, support, and housing, and accessing the benefits that are out there. Oftentimes, they're out there, but they're just difficult to navigate how to get them and how to use them and maximize the opportunities that are out there. And so whether it's the family working directly or working in conjunction with the care partners at the community level, what a great resource to be able to call your team and really from beginning to end of the process, have a partner that can be trusted as people are helping their most valuable assets find the care and housing and services and benefits that they need. So appreciate what you do. So appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy schedule today to spend a little bit of time with us in the Bridge the Gap network. We have a lot of things to link to you, Greg. You got a lot going on. So we'll make sure in our show notes for our listeners, if you weren't able to jot all of this information down, you go to btgvoice.com. We're going to link you personally to Greg, his great network and his companies and his mission. With Strambecco, if you want to find out about all of these cycling journeys and maybe even be a part of one of those or support that effort in the future as they support great organizations that are doing good work. And of course, SilverAssist and many of our listeners, as a matter of fact, most of our listeners are at some point involved in aging services industry, and I know they'll want to connect with you, Greg. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You bet. Thanks so much, and I also wanted to thank you and the whole team for it's a warm welcome at the end of our ride. It's not often we get a welcome party at the end of one of our events, so it's great.
Well, we hope to be able to do that again and make it even a bigger party next time. What a rewarding effort, and it was fun to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for listening and watching and connecting, subscribing to another great episode of Bridge the Gap.
Thanks for listening to Bridge the Gap podcast with Josh and Lucas. Connect with the BTG Network team and use your voice to influence the industry by connecting with us at btgvoice.com.